Good evening, everybody. This is JJ Burns reporting on TrumpNewsInternational.com. We are going to be looking at the Muslim Brotherhood, the history of it, and the dangers to the West. And if you like this podcast and the website, then please support the journalism. This is a very in-depth look at the Muslim Brotherhood. And so we'll begin. This is for ambassadors and politicians and business people, and for anybody who's interested in defending Western civilization and Western values. The Society of Muslim Brotherhood, better known as the Muslim Brotherhood, is a transnational Sunni Islamic organization founded in Egypt by Islamic scholar Imam and school teacher Hassan al-Banna in 1828. Al-Banna's teaching spread far beyond Egypt, influencing various Islamic movements, from charitable organizations to political parties. Even today, this movement has a massive impact in Western governments and institutions. Initially as a pan-Islamist religious and social movement, its members preached Islam in Egypt, taught the illiterate, and set up hospitals and business enterprises. The group later advanced into the political arena, aiming to end British colonial rule in Egypt. The movement's self-stated aim is the establishment of a state ruled, and I quote, by Sharia under a caliphate. Did you hear that? Under a caliphate. With one of its most well-known slogans being Islam is the solution, the group combines political activism with Islamic charity work. So Western elites and Western governments have allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to infiltrate their institutions, and this is their agenda, Sharia and Caliphate. The group spread to other Muslim countries, but still one of its largest organizations is in Egypt, although it's been banned a few years ago as a terrorist organization, and yet Britain has allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to establish itself in Britain. Despite the succession of government crackdowns since 1948 in Egypt, it remained a fringe group in the politics of the Arab world until 1967 Six-Day War, when Islamism replaced popular secular Arab nationalism after a resounding Arab defeat by the State of Israel. The movement was also supported by Saudi Arabia, with which it shared mutual enemies like communism. The Arab Spring initially brought the group legalization and substantial political power, but that expansion had suffered reversal by 2013. The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood was legalized in 2011 and won several elections, including the 2012 Egyptian presidential election, in which his candidate Mohamed Morsi became Egypt's first democratically elected president. Following massive demonstrations and unrest, Morsi was overthrown in 2013, an Egyptian coup d'etat orchestrated by the military and placed under her house arrest. A later review found that the Muslim Brotherhood had failed to moderate its views or embrace democratic values during its time in power. The group was then banned in Egypt, banned in Egypt, and declared a terrorist organization. You heard it here. Yes, a terrorist organization, and yet it is accepted in most Western countries. How crazy can you get? The Persian Gulf monarchies of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, would you believe it, followed suit and banned this organization. Yet this organization has well embedded itself in America and across the Western Hemisphere. The group's founder accepted the utility of political violence, and members of the Brotherhood conducted assassinations and attempted assassinations on Egyptian state figures during his lifetime, including Egyptian Prime Minister Nokrashi Pasha in 1948. In his 1964 book, Millstones, Sayyid Qutb, one of the group's most prominent thinkers, promoted takfirism, a doctrine permitting the stigmatization of other Muslims as infidel or apostate, and of existing states as un-Islamic, and the use of extreme violence in the pursuit of the perfect Islamic society. The doctrine continues to inspire many jihadist movements, and the group abandoned the use of violence in the 1970s. However, Hamas, the Palestinian militant group that controls the Gaza Strip, is an offshoot of the Brotherhood that continues to use violence. The Muslim Brotherhood does not have a clear ideological platform on violence, but it does initiate violence. It does plan violence. It does write about violence. In recent years, the primary state backers of the Muslim Brotherhood have been Qatar and AKP ruled Turkey. As of 2026, the flagship group or specific chapters are considered a terrorist organization by governments in Argentina, Kenya, Germany, Bahrain, Egypt, Russia, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the United States. But as I've said, they are well embedded in the United States. They are buying vast lands in Texas, for example, under false business companies. What you need to understand about the Muslim Brotherhood and what you need to understand about the Muslim Brotherhood is they've had connections with Al-Qaeda and other organizations, and they are a Trojan horse to the Western Hemisphere. This is something that you need to understand. The foundation of the Muslim Brotherhood, the history in Egypt. Formative period. In 1928 to 1936, Hassan al-Banna founded the Muslim Brotherhood in the city of Ismalia in March 1828, along with 6 workers of the Suez Canal Company, as a pan-Islamic religious and political social movement. They appointed al-Banna as their leader and vowed to work for Islam through jihad and revive Islamic Brotherhood. Thus, the Muslim Brothers were born under the pledge that its members would be soldiers to call to Islam, in that it is the life of the country and the honor of the Ummah. We are brothers in the service of Islam, hence we are the Muslim Brothers. The Suez Canal Company helped Banna build the mosque in Ismailia that would serve as the Brotherhood's headquarters, according to Rich Pete Mitchell's The Society of Muslim Brothers. According to al-Banna, contemporary Islam had lost its social dominance because most Muslims had been corrupted by Western influence. Sharia law based on the Quran and the Sunnah was seen as laws passed down by God that should be applied to all parts of life, including the organization of the government and the handling of everyday problems. Al-Banna was a populist in his message for protecting workers against the tyranny of foreign and monopolist companies. He founded social institutions such as hospitals, pharmacies, schools, etc. Al-Banna held highly conservative views on issues such as women's rights, opposing equal rights for women, but supporting the establishment of justice towards women. The Brotherhood grew rapidly, going from 800 members in 1836 to 200,000 by 1938 and over 2 million in 1948. Entry into politics from 1936 to 1939. As its influence grew, it opposed British rule in Egypt starting in 1936. Al-Banna had been in contact with Ammar al-Husseini since 1927. A central concern for the early Muslim Brotherhood was its pro-Arab activism for the Arab Zionist conflict in Palestine, which in 1936 and 1939 culminated in the Great Arab Revolt. While absent before the outbreak of the revolt, the Brotherhood now began to make use of aggressive anti-Jewish rhetoric, which also targeted the Jewish community in Egypt. The official weekly of the brother Al-Nadir published a series of articles, The Danger of Jews, warning of alleged Jewish plots against Islam like Freemasonry or Marxism. In 1938, Al-Nadir demanded from Egyptian Jews to either adopt an openly anti-Zionist stance or to face hostility. It also criticized the prominent role of the Jews in Egypt society and their prominence in Jerusalem, commercial spheres, and the entertainment industry. Al-Nadir even called for a boycott and their expulsion, for they have corrupted Egypt and its population. In another instance, the Jews were referred to as social cancer. The Brotherhood eventually distributed a list of Jewish business owners and called for their boycott, claiming that they supported the Zionists. Such conflations of Jews and Zionists were common. In the proceedings of World War II, the Muslim Brotherhood grew connections with Nazi Germany, maintained via the Duchess of Nar-Chentaburu in Cairo and Ahmed al-Husseini, who himself received funds from the Abwehr, being interested in strengthening a militant anti-British organisation. Germany may have funded the Brotherhood as early as 1934. One later British source claimed that in 1936 alone, Germany transferred over £5,000. Al-Banna and other members of the Brotherhood voiced admiration for aspects of Nazi ideology, including its militarism and its centralization revolving around a charismatic leader, but opposed others like its racial policies and ethnic nationalism. The outbreak of the war ended the relationship between Germany and the Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Banna denied that he ever received German funding, and Italian funding of the Brotherhood is unlikely, as they later vehemently opposed the Italian occupation of Libya. In World War II, from 1939 to 1945, over the course of the war, the Brotherhood displayed pro-Axis sympathies, where the British kept the Brotherhood under firm control by temporarily banning its newsletter, surveilling its meetings, and arresting various provincial leaders, as al-Banna himself was briefly taken into custody and eventually acknowledged his loyalty to the British, although later remained suspicious. Between 1938 and 1940, the Brotherhood formed an armed wing called the Secret Apparatus, also known as Special Apparatus. This group was a successor of the battalions, the Kateb, established in late 1937. Its goal was to fight the British until their expulsion from Egypt, British collaborators as well as Zionists. It also protected the Brotherhood against the police and infiltrated the communist movement. The secret apparatus was led by the Committee of Five, which each of them commanding one tightly knit cell. Only the most committed members, mostly young students or men with salary jobs, were invited to join. New members of the secret apparatus were taught to obey, were given weapons, underwent heavy physical training, and were taught the concepts of jihad and underground operations. The result was a zealous elite force. Its first operation was allegedly towards the end of World War II, when members of the group threw a bomb at a British club. Military youth sections were also raised, namely the junior Kashafa Scouts and the more senior Jawali Travelers. In 1948, al-Banna denounced fascism and militarism in his book Peace in Islam. Nazism, he writes, this is al-Banna, Nazism came to power in Germany, fascism in Italy, and both Hitler and Mussolini began to force their people to conform to what they thought. Unity, order, development, and power. Certainly this led the two countries to stability and vital international role. This cultivated much hope, reawakened aspiration, and united the whole country under one leader. Then what happened? It became apparent that these seemingly powerful systems were a real disaster. The inspiration and aspiration of people was shattered, and the system of democracy did not lead to the empowerment of the people, but to the establishment of chosen tyrants. Eventually, after a deadly war in which innumerable men and women and children died, these regimes collapsed. Quotation of al-Banna, the Muslim Brotherhood founder. Post-World War II, the conflict in Palestine and Egypt in 1945 and 1952. After the war, the Muslim Brotherhood lobbied for granting Ahmed al-Husseini, who had served as a German propaganda mouthpiece between 1941 and 1945, asylum in Egypt. In May 1946, al-Husseini managed to escape from French imprisonment and arrived in Cairo. He received a warm welcome, especially by al-Banna, who ennobled him to to a miracle of a man with a divine spark in his heart which makes him above human beings, followed by a martial pledge of loyalty against the Zionists. Soon after his arrival, the Arab League established the Arab Higher Executive, rebranded Arab Higher Committee in January 1947, as a Supreme Palestinian Party with Amin al-Husseini as Cairo-based chairman. Al-Bani designated al-Hussein a local Brotherhood leader to spread the influence of the new Palestinian branch established in October 1945. Another small branch was founded in Jordan at the turn of 1946. The Brotherhood opposed the UN's involvement in Palestine from 1947, with the latter eventually voting for its petition into a Jewish and an Arab state in November 1947. Consequently, the society prepared for war, the volunteers entering Palestine as early as October 1947. By the 30th of November 1947, Palestine descended into a civil war fought between the Yishuv and al-Hussein's Arab Higher Committee, eventually ending in Palestinian defeat by 1948. Of the 10,000 fighters al-Bani had promised in October 1947, some 1,500 were present by March 1948. The fighters came from all three branches and were originally engaged in guerrilla activities. The end of the mandatory Palestine and Israel Declaration of Independence on 14th of May resulted in an invasion by 5 Arab states on the 15th of May, among them Egypt. Brotherhood fighters assisted the Egyptian army northwest of Gaza, although some were also active in the West Bank. The volunteers suffered a few hundred casualties, dead and wounded, and had only a limited impact on the course of the war. Although they played a decisive role in several engagements, the war was an Arab failure, resulting in a truce fiercely opposed by the Muslim Brotherhood. On 2nd of November 1945, the Brotherhood organized a general strike protesting the Balfour Declaration that eventually escalated into deadly riots targeting Jews and foreigners. In 1948, the secret apparatus assassinated a respected judge for issuing a life sentence against a Muslim brother for attacking British soldiers. In late 1948, the Brotherhood was estimated to have 2,000 branches and 500,000 members and sympathizers. In November, following several bombings and alleged assassination attempts by the Brotherhood, the Egyptian government arrested 32 leaders of the Brotherhood's secret apparatus and banned the Brotherhood. It was accused of preparing the overthrow of the government linked to a jeep loaded with weapons, and the headquarters were closed and its funds confiscated while 4,000 brothers were detained, and al-Bani was placed under temporary house arrest. The reaction to the dissolution was the assassination of Prime Minister el-Nokashi Pasha on the 28th of December by a young secret apparatus member. Al-Bani claimed that the killer acted independently and publicly denounced his fate. After a failed yet lethal bombing in mid-January 1949, which was intended to destroy legal evidence pending against the Brotherhood, al-Bani was killed in 12th of February by vengeful Nokashi supporters. In 1952, members of the Muslim Brotherhood were accused of taking part in the Cairo fire that destroyed some 750 buildings in downtown Cairo, mainly nightclubs, theatres, hotels, restaurants, frequented by British and other foreigners. Dissolution under the Free Officers and Nasser in 1952 and 1970. In 1952, Egypt's monarchy was overthrown by a group of nationalist military officers. It's called the Free Officers Movement, who had formed a cell within the Brotherhood during the First War against Israel in 1948. However, after the revolution, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the leader of the Free Officers cell, after disposing first president of Egypt, Mohammed Negub, in a coup, quickly moved against the Brotherhood, blaming them for an attempt on his life. The Brotherhood was again banned, and this time thousands of its members was imprisoned, many being tortured and held for years in prison and concentration camps. The 1950s and 60s, many Brotherhood members sought sanctuary in Saudi Arabia. From the 1950s, al-Bani's son-in-law, Saad Ramadan, emerged as a major leader of the Brotherhood, and the movement's unofficial foreign minister, Ramadan, built a major center for the Brotherhood Center on a mosque in Munich, which became a refuge for beleaguered groups during its decades in the wilderness. In the 1960s, Ramadan worked closely with Kamud Muftik, a Bosnian Muslim exile who had married his cousin and who helped build links between the Muslim Brotherhood and various communist exile groups in Europe and the Middle East. In the 1970s, after the death of Nasser and under the new president Anwar Sadat, the Egyptian Brotherhood was invited back to Egypt and began a new phase of participation in Egyptian politics. During the Mubarak era, observers both defended and criticized the Brotherhood. It was the largest opposition group in Egypt, calling for Islamic reform and democratic system in Egypt. It had built a vast network of support throughout the Islamic charities working among poor Egyptians. According to ex-Canet member and author Yuri Avery, the Brotherhood was religious but pragmatic, deeply embedded in Egyptian history, and more Arab and more Egyptian than fundamentalist. It formed an old established party which has earned much respect with its steadfastness in the face of current persecution, torture, mass arrests, and occasional executions. Its leaders are untainted by the prevalent corruption and admired for the commitment to social work. It also developed a significant movement online. In 2005 parliamentary elections, the Brotherhood became, in effect, the first opposition party of Egypt's modern era. Despite electoral irregularities, including the arrest of 100 Brotherhood members and having to run its candidates as independents, the organization being technically illegal, the Brotherhood won 88 seats, 20% of the total compared to 14 seats for the legal opposition. During its term in Parliament, the Brotherhood posed a democratic and political challenge to the regime, not a theological one, according to the New York Times. Whilst another report praised it for attempting to transform the Egyptian Parliament into a real legislative body. They represented its citizens and they kept the government accountable. But fears remained about its commitment to democracy, equal rights, and freedom of expression and belief, or lack thereof. In December 2006, a campus demonstration by Brotherhood students in uniform demonstrating martial arts drills betrayed to some, such as Jamel Thiabi, the group intend to plan for the creation of militia structures and a return by the group to the era of secret cells. Another report highlighted the Muslim Brotherhood effort in Parliament to combat one member called the current US-led war against Islamic culture and identity, forcing the Minister of Culture at the time, Farouk Hosni, to ban the publication of 3 novels on the ground they promoted blasphemy and unacceptable sexual practices. In October 2007, the Muslim Brotherhood issued a detailed political platform. Among other things, it called for a board of Muslim clerics to oversee the government and limiting the office of the presidency to Muslim men. In the Issues and Problems chapter of the platform, it declared that woman was not suited to be president because the office of religious and military duties conflict with her nature, social and other humanitarian roles. While proclaiming equality between men and women in terms of their human dignity, the document warned against burdening women with duties against their nature or role in the family. Internally, some leaders in the Brotherhood disagreed on whether to adhere to Egypt's 32-year peace treaty with Israel. A deputy leader declared the Brotherhood would seek dissolution of the treaty, while a Brotherhood spokesman stated the Brotherhood would respect the treaty as long as Israel shows real progress on improving the lot of Palestinians. In other words, they're talking by both sides of their mouth. Good evening to everybody who's come. I'm continuing this report, and I hope people find it interesting and strategic for those who are political leaders in the West today. 2011 Revolution and After. Following the 2011 Egyptian Revolution, and fall of Hosni Mubarak, the Brotherhood was legalized and was at first very successful, dominated the 2011 parliamentary election and winning 2012 presidential election before the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi a year later, leading to a crackdown on the Brotherhood again. On 30th April 2011, the Brotherhood launched a new party called the Freedom and Justice Party, which won 235 of the 498 seats in the 2000 Egyptian parliamentary elections, far more than any other party. The party rejected the candidacy of women or Copts for Egypt's presidency, but not for cabinet positions. The Muslim Brotherhood's candidate for 2012 presidential election was Mohamed Morsi, who defeated Ahmed Shafiq, the last prime minister under Mubarak rule, with 51.73% of the vote. Although during his campaign, Morsi himself promised to stand for peaceful relations with Israel, some high-level supporters and former Brotherhood officials from the organization's 15-member Guidance Council reiterated hostility towards Zionism. For example, Egypt's cleric Safwat Hegazi spoke at the announcement rally for the Muslim Brotherhood's candidate, Morsi, and expressed his hope and belief that Morsi would liberate Gaza, restore the caliphate of the United States of Arabs with Jerusalem as its capital, and that our cry shall be millions of martyrs march towards Jerusalem. Within a short period, serious public opposition developed to President Morsi. In late November 2012, he temporarily granted himself the power to legislate without judicial oversight or review of his acts, on the grounds that he needed to protect the nation from the Mubarak-era power structure. He also put a draft constitution to referendum that opponents complained was an Islamic coup. These issues and concerns over the prosecution of journalists, the unleashing of pro-Brotherhood gangs on non-violent demonstrators, and the continuation of military trials, new laws that permitted detention without judicial review for up to 30 days, brought hundreds of thousands of protesters to the streets, starting in November 2012. By April 2013, Egypt had become increasingly divided between President Mohamed Morsi and Islamist allies and opposition of the moderate Muslims, Christian and liberals. Opponents accused Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood of seeking to monopolize power, while Morsi's allies said the opposition is trying to destabilize the country to derail the elected leadership. Adding to the unrest were several fuel shortages and electricity outages, which raised suspicion amongst the Egyptians that the end of gas and electricity shortages since the ouster of President Mohamed Morsi was evidence of a conspiracy to undermine him, although other Egyptians say it was evidence of Morsi's mismanagement of the economy. On the 3rd of July 2013, Mohamed Morsi was removed from office and put into a house arrest by the military. That happened shortly after the mass protest against him began, demanding the resignation of Morsi. There were also significant counter-protests in support of Morsi, and those were originally intended to celebrate the one-year anniversary of Morsi's inauguration and started days before the uprising. On the 14th of August, the interim government declared a month-long state of emergency, and riot police cleared the pro-Morsi site during the Rabah Sit dispersal in August 2013. Violence escalated rapidly following armed protesters attacking police, according to the National Council for Human Rights report. This led to the death of over 600 people and injury of some 4,000, with the incident resulting in the most casualties in Egypt's modern history. In retaliation, Brotherhood supporters looted and burned police stations and dozens of churches in response to the violence, though a Muslim Brotherhood spokesman condemned the attacks on Christians and instead blamed military leaders for plotting the attacks. The crackdown that followed has been called the worst for the Brotherhood's organization in 8 decades. By 19th of August, Al Jazeera reported that most of the Brotherhood leaders were in custody, and on that day, Supreme Leader Mohammed Baadiyow was arrested, crossing a red line as even Hosni Mubarak had never arrested him. On the 23rd of September, a court ordered the group outlawed and its assets seized, Prime Minister Haim al-Bilawi on the 21st of December 2013 declared the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization after a car bomb ripped through a police building and killed at least 14 people in the city of Mansoura, with the government blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood despite no evidence, an unaffiliated Syria-based terror group claiming responsibility for the attack. On the 24th of March 2014, an Egyptian court sentenced 529 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to death following an attack on a police station, an act described by Amnesty International as the largest single batch of simultaneous death sentences we've seen in recent years anywhere in the world. By May 2014, approximately 6,000 people, and as high as more 40,000 by The Economist, calls an independent count. Mostly Brotherhood members or supporters were allegedly being arrested by police in 2013 uprising. On the 2nd of February 2015, an Egyptian court sentenced another 183 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to death. An editorial in the New York Times claimed that the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, which became the leading political movement in the wake of Egypt's 2011 popular uprising, are languishing in prison, unfairly branded as terrorists. Egypt's crushing authoritarianism could well persuade a significant number of its citizens that violence is the only tool they have for fighting back. Mohammed Morsi was sentenced to death on 16th of May 2015 with 120 others. The Muslim Brotherhood claimed that Muslims did not carry out the Baadiyow church bombing and claimed it was a false flag conspiracy by the Egyptian government and Copts in a statement released in Arabic on the FGP website, but its claim was challenged by 100 women participant of the Never Mahmoud and Hoover Institution and Hudson Institute, a fellow Samuel scholar Samuel Tadros. The Muslim Brotherhood released an English language commentary on the bombing and said it condemned the terrorist attack. Qatar-based Muslim Brotherhood members are suspected to have helped a Muslim Brotherhood agent carry out the bombing, according to the Egyptian government. The Qatar-based supporter was named as Moab Mustafa El Sayed Qasim. The terrorist was named of Mahmoud Shafiq Mohammed Mustafa. The Arabic language website of the Brotherhood commemorated the anniversary of the death of its leader, Hassan al-Banna, and repeated his words calling for the teachings of Islam to spread all over the world and to raise the flag of jihad, taking their land, regaining their glory, including diaspora Muslims, and demanding an Islamic state and a Muslim government and a Muslim people and a Muslim house and Muslim individuals. So that's kind of the early history of the Muslim Brotherhood. And what you can see there is it was involved in creating cells, military cells. It was involved in bringing down governments, involved in assassinations, involved in attacking the British government, highly against Israel. And this organization has infiltrated the West. And you can see that it's going to create more and more conflict as the years goes on. There are many Muslim Brotherhood members in the BBC, in the British government, and other institutions. And so they're only trying to bring down the West and the anti-Israel. So anything they can do to destroy the Israeli state, they will do. They will have no compunction in creating military cells. And so this is what we're up against in the West. And yet the West has let its guard down and let the Muslim Brotherhood get its teeth into Western society. So Muslim Brotherhood outside Egypt. In Bahrain, Following parliamentary elections in 2002, al-Medha became the largest joint party with 8 seats in the 40-seat Chamber of Deputies. Prominent members of al-Medha include Dr. Abdullah. So they're in Bahrain, they're in Iran. Iranian Call and Reform Organization, a Sunni Islam group active in Iran, predominantly among Kurds, has been described as an organization that belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood. Turkey. The Turkish AKP, the ruling party of Turkey, publicly supported the Muslim Brotherhood during a few months after the overthrow of the Muslim Brotherhood-affiliated Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi in July 2013. So they have influence in Turkey. They have influence in Iraq. The Iraqi Islamic Party was formed in 1960, the Iraqi branch of the Brotherhood, but was banned in 1961. After the fall of Saddam government in 2003, the Islamic Party was re-emerged as one of the main advocates of the country's Sunni community. They're active in Iraq. Israel. The Brotherhood supported Hezbollah military action against Israel. Palestine. Between 1967 and 1987, the year Hamas was founded, the number of mosques in Gaza tripled from 200 to 600, and the Muslim Brotherhood named the period between 1975 and 1987 a phase of social institution building. During the time, the Brotherhood established associations, used zakat, alms giving for aid to poor Palestinians, promoted schools, provided students with loans. So they're been heavily influenced in Palestine, Jordan. They have an influence in Jordan. Qatar, they have influence in Qatar. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Syria, United Emirates. They have cells in all these places. Yemen, Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, Somalia, Sudan. There, the Muslim Brotherhood build-up in France started. So they're influence. They have influence in the Middle East, in Africa. Muslim Brotherhood build-up France started. The organization primarily consisted of foreign students who entered France from Tunisia and Morocco. By 2020, there were 147 mosques and 18 Islamic schools associated with the Brotherhood. So that was 2020. They had 50,000 members. In January 2020, the French National Assembly adopted a non-binding resolution calling on the European Union to assess whether the Muslim Brotherhood should be added to the EU's list of terrorist organizations. The resolution urged EU institutions to examine the movement's activities and networks. But they're in France in big time. They're also in Germany, even though they've been banned. They have a heavy influence in Netherlands. Muslim Brotherhood have a strong influence. Russia's banned it as a terrorist organization, but they have a strong influence in Russia. The Muslim Brotherhood uses London as an administrative base. The first Muslim, you can't believe it, can you? Muslim Brotherhood are freely operating. Can you believe it? Freely operating in the UK. They have an influence in Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, New Zealand, and the Muslim Brotherhood are massively strong in America. So what are the beliefs of the Muslim Brotherhood? What are the beliefs of the Muslim Brotherhood? The Brotherhood's English language website describes its principles as including, firstly, the introduction of Islamic Sharia as the basis for controlling affairs of state and society. Secondly, working to unify Islamic countries and states, mainly among the Arab states, and liberate them from foreign imperialism. The Brotherhood is heavily influenced by early Salafia movement and regularly advocates Salafi revivalist themes that address the contemporary challenges faced by Muslims, calling for the establishment of the Islamic State through implementation of the Sharia and jihad against disbelievers. Science and technology should be harnessed through Islamic means to revive the Islamic prowess, and jihad should be waged personally as well as communally to bring forth effective political transformation. The Brotherhood shared common creedal beliefs, strict monotheism, and regard to divine attributes, purifying Islam from accretions and thought practices associated with Sufism. Stance on democracy, civil rights, and secularism. Quote their statement on it. We believe the political reform is the true and natural gateway for all other kinds of reform. We have announced our acceptance of democracy that acknowledges political pluralism, the peaceful rotation of power, and the fact that the nation is the source of all power. This is lies. They don't believe this at all. They use this so to get power. And we see it. Political reform includes the termination of the state of emergency, restoring political freedoms, including the right to establish political parties. It's all lies. It's just lies. They just say that to get power. Strategy and organization. The Muslim Brotherhood considers their movement to be the practical extension of pan-Islamism movement championed by Jalal al-Afghani. Afghani is regarded as the caller or announcer, Reader as the architect, as the historian, and Banner was seen as the builder. Afghani was considered the spiritual father of the movement and as a fiery defender of faith against both internal corruption and external encroachment. The methodology of the Brotherhood was characterized by the scholarly orthodoxy and conservatism of Mohammed Rashid Rida. Like Rida, Banner too advocated a conservative revival to values of early Muslim generations and viewed Islam to be comprehensive faith, outlining as a faith and a ritual, a nation and a nationality, and a religion and a state. So basically, it's looking to do a world Islamic caliphate. That's the strategy. At the top of the hierarchy is the guidance of office. Then you have the Sharia Council as the duties of planning and charting general policies and programs that achieve the goal of the group. It is composed of 100 Muslims. You have Executive Office and Guidance Office, Secretarial, Educational, Political, and Sister Office. The Motherhood Brotherhood aims to build a transnational organization. In 1997, the Muslim Brotherhood Supreme Guide, Mustafa Mashur, told journalists of Khalid that the thought of Egyptian Coptic Christians and Orthodox Jews should pay the long abandoned jizya poll tax levied on non-Muslims in exchange for protection from their state, rationalized by the fact that the non-Muslims are exempt from military service while it is compulsory for Muslims. He went on to say, "We do not mind having Christian members in the People's Assembly. The top officials, especially in the army, should be Muslims since we are a Muslim country. This is necessary because when a Christian country attacks the Muslim country and the army has Christian elements, they are facilitate our defeat by the enemy." According to the Guardian newspaper, the proposal caused an uproar among Egyptian 16 million Coptic Christians, and the movement later backtracked. So I think we've done. I think you can see that our leaders are insane. You can see the insanity of our leaders. Allowing the Muslim Brotherhood to take root in Britain is an absolute catastrophe. That they're not rooted out in America, that they're not rooted out in Europe and in Muslim countries, means you've got this cancer where they will spread, even if it's violent, needing to be violent, they will spread carnage in order to get their way. This is a horrendous movement, and it's going to bring a catastrophe to Britain and to Europe and to America. And the army, the police, the judiciary, politicians, everybody should work towards banning this group, seizing the assets of this group, and getting them out of your countries. Otherwise, you're going to have a continual catastrophe with this group. Okay, that's my take on this topic. I hope it's been a help to you and a blessing. And please consider supporting TrumpNewsInternational.com. God bless you and take care.